Chapter 30. An unscheduled diversion. When you look at the moon from Earth, it looks a bit smudgy. I mean, you know the smudges are mountains and so on, but really they just look like blotches. But from where I'm sitting, you can see they are mad, spiky, storybook mountains. The surface is white as paper, and the shadows are sharp and definite. It's like looking at the map of an imaginary realm in a Warcraft manual. Massive mountains, deep valleys, empty plains. All it needs is a few trolls and dragons and a big fancy compass. What, yelled Florida, what is the moon doing there? I said calmly, oh, orbiting the Earth, affecting the tides, stuff like that. It's important for a parent to stay calm in all eventualities. Inside my head, my panicky 12-year-old voice was screaming, it's pulling us nearer and nearer. It's pulling us into orbit. That's what it's doing. We're going to be left circling the moon forever. What are you going to do? The truth is, I had been hoping that when I got into the Dandelion, there would be some brakes and a steering wheel, and I'd be able to stop us, change direction, maybe do an intergalactic three-point turn, and drive us home. But there didn't seem to be any controls at all. Florida shrugged and said, I suppose we'll just have to take a free return trajectory round the moon to bring us back. I said, sorry? She said, like on Apollo 13. Calm dad voice out loud. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my plan. What you just said. Scared little boy voice inside. What did she say? Is she saying there's a way out of this? Florida plonked herself down on one of the bench seats and growled. I hate it when this happens. When you think you're nearly home and then the bus goes off on some, what's it called? Trajectory? No, when you catch the 81, it comes right up to the flyover and you think, I'm nearly home. And then it goes off under the flyover, around the island and all the way up to the 24-hour Tesco before it comes back to where it was when you were nearly home. Oh, yeah. She crossed her arms and stared out of the window. She really did look like she was sitting on the number 81. I sat down next to her and said, yeah, trajectories, eh? Don't you just hate them? How do they work exactly? And then she told me the whole story of Apollo 13, which is this. Apollo 13 was on its way to the moon when one of its oxygen tanks blew up. The crew climbed into the tiny little landing module and used it as a kind of life raft. Then they flew right round the back of the moon so that the moon's gravity would give them a bit of extra speed and, by burning their remaining engine at the right time, broke their orbit and made it home to Earth. Obviously, that's a summary. In Florida's version, there was a lot about whether 13 is really an unlucky number and which Hollywood actors played the astronauts in the film version. Kevin Bacon and Tom Hanks, by the way, and who those actors are married to now. While she was talking, the others must have noticed the open hatch in the floor of the command module. One by one, they floated down into the Dandelion. The first one in was Hassan, who didn't seem to notice the moon at all. He spread himself out on one of the bench seats, saying, it's much more comfortable down here. Samson too stared out the window with his mouth wide open until Florida says sarcastically, yes, it's the moon. We've got to go right round the back of it. Can you believe it? The moon? But no one said anything about the moon. It's a diversion, said Florida. An unscheduled diversion. But the moon, it's so far away. Not anymore, said Florida. The real problem was Max. It wasn't the moon that bothered him. It was the Dandelion. Our mission was to decouple this module and put it into orbit. We must do it now. I explained that we couldn't do this right at this minute because we had a problem. Not to release it means we failed. Failure is not an option. We haven't failed. We just haven't succeeded yet. We'll press the green button when we can. But Dr. Drax said Dr. Drax didn't know. She knows more than you do. I'm now going to press the green button, he said. I ran after him. Weightless running isn't exactly speedy. It felt like one of those dreams where you're trying to get away from mad dogs, but your feet are sort of stuck to the floor. In the end, I kind of toppled forward into an involuntary somersault, just caught him with my foot and sent him spinning back towards the seats. I grabbed the hatch myself and said, listen, we've got a plan, and it's a plan about... What was it about? Florida's going to tell you what it's about. Delegation, see, very important with teenagers. I haven't got a plan, said Florida. Delegation and affirmation. You've got a brilliant plan, Florida, about trajectories, remember? Oh, the free return trajectory, said Florida. Like on Apollo 13. You must remember Apollo 13. The brilliant failure, said Samson too. the lunar mission that was supposedly abandoned because of a faulty oxygen tank. I didn't notice him saying supposedly at the time, but I certainly noticed it 10 minutes later. She explained the whole thing to them about going round the back of the moon until we were facing the right way, and she pointed out that it was going to be easy for us. It was going to be a ride, in fact. On Apollo 13, all they had was this tiny module, and it was really cramped, and there wasn't enough oxygen or power. We've got this whole solar-powered Dandelion, and it's got plenty of room and loads of food. So it's a picnic, really, by comparison. The Dandelion is meant for space travel, but not re-entry. The command mode module is meant for re-entry, but not really space travel. So we use the Dandelion to get us back to Earth orbit, and then we all go back into the command module and use that to get back to Earth. Understand? Everyone said yes. What was there not to understand? But Max said, yes, I understand. And now I'm going to press the green button. What? Have you been listening to anything we've been saying? Yes, but I listened to Dr. Drax more. Anyway, you can't press the button, said Hassan, because it's my turn. And two of them hurled themselves towards the hatch. I shouted, no one is pressing the real green button. We'll all be killed. Samson 2 said, of course we won't be killed. You don't really believe we're in space, surely? Everyone stopped and stared at him. Of course we're not really in space. This is the trick Dr. Drax has played on us. If we open the door, we will find that we are in the middle of the Infinity Park, same as always. In fact, I'm going to open it now. He kicked his feet on the back of the seat and floated off towards the airlock. I was going to go after him when I realized I had to go after Max too. My brain tried to choose between being shot out of a spaceship and accelerating to death, or being set adrift forever and ever in a space ice cream van. In that horrible moment, I realized that the real danger wasn't the infinite vacuum of space or the 6 million possible flaws in the rocket. The real danger was the children. Remember, a teenager is barely in control of anything, not even his or her own body. You are in control of everything. If your teens are reacting irrationally or disproportionately to some little thing, it's up to you to try and work out what's really upsetting them. From Talk to Your Teen. Max was upset because he's very fixated on success. To him, being halfway to the moon in an ice cream van meant we were failures. He thought that if we just jettisoned the Dandelion, we'd be winners again. As for Samson 2, he was upset because he'd totally flipped out. Which is understandable. If I didn't have to look after the others, I'd flip out too. All I had to do was sort Max out. All I had to do to sort Max out was show him that getting ourselves home in one piece after all the problems we'd had would be an even greater achievement than just doing what Dr. Drax had told us to. So I said to him, you know, Max, after all our problems, getting home in one piece will be an even greater achievement than just doing everything Dr. Drax said. He said, all our problems are Hassan's fault. No, said Hassan, they're all your fault. You pressed the wrong button. Now I'm going to press the right one. I didn't press any button. You did. No, I didn't press it. You did. I said, I'm the daddy, and I decide who presses the buttons. And I have decided that whoever wins my game presses it when I say so. Wins? Said Max, suddenly interested. Like I said, every monster has its soft zone. Winning is Max's. What game? Yes, what game? It turns out that Hassan has a board game in his PIP. This game, he said, taught me to love money, and that's why I love it. The game was Monopoly. There's really no getting away from it. I suppose that's why it's called Monopoly. Low gravity Monopoly is better than Monopoly you play around the kitchen table, in that it only lasts a few minutes. If you've got a magnetic travel set, like Hassan's, the pieces will stay on the board, and if you carefully keep hold of the money, that's okay too. The problem is the dice. You can throw the dice, but they won't actually land. They just drift off in random directions, dipping and swooping like genetically modified sugar cubes, and they never stop spinning. The endless spinning really interested Samson too. Fascinating, he said. There must be some way to harness the energy these dice create by spinning like this. Then, just in case I was starting to feel a bit relaxed, he added, I wonder how Dr. Drax has achieved this effect. It really does feel as though we are weightless. You could almost believe that you were really in space. We did try throwing the dice onto a loop of sellotape that we stuck to one of the seats, but it didn't really work. And during the arguments about whether it was a 6 or not, I spotted Max heading back towards the command module. I shouted, what about rock, paper, scissors? None of them, except Florida, had ever played that. They were completely interested in it for about 20 minutes. The first 10 minutes were taken up discussing why paper beats rock and whether anyone would really try to use scissors to cut a rock. I had a round with Max in which he played dynamite and I played scissors. Then in the next round, he played rock and I played scissors again. Scissors wins. He said, "You played scissors last time and I destroyed them with my dynamite. How can you still have scissors when I destroyed your scissors?" Well, they're not destroyed forever, just until the next round. This game was obviously too abstract for Max. He went very red and started yelling, "This is madness. One of them must be destroyed, or how can there be a winner? You can only have a winner if something is destroyed." When he shouted destroyed like that, I nearly panicked. But I didn't. I just said, "Hide and seek, anyone?" Weightless hide and seek sounds like a good idea, but it was a bigger mistake than rock, paper, scissors. Weightless hide and seek was what nearly killed all of us. I was on. I counted very loudly to 40 while they all went and hid. For that 40 seconds, I sat back on one of the window seats and looked out at the moon. Then I shouted, "Coming, ready or not?" I could actually hear Samson 2 moving about under one of the chairs. It would have been a great hiding place, except for the weightlessness, which meant his head kept floating up and down. I caught him and we both went looking for the others. I could feel that Max was watching me. I looked up and glimpsed him holding onto the ceiling with his fingers, looking down at us, hoping we hadn't seen him. I decided to let him stay there so that he could win, since winning was such a big deal for him. I moved to the front of the Dandelion, between the front seat and the window, which is where I used to sit on the top deck of the bus to school. I noticed there was a bigger than you really needed space between the two front seats and a kind of groove in one of the floor panels. I gave it a tug and rolled it sideways. Florida was looking straight up at me with this big grin on her face, saying, "Come and see."